Hello, beautiful people. Welcome back to Find Your Light Live, a space for Black and West Indian women. Welcome. Today, we are talking about why following everyone else's shoulds is destroying your joy. Okay. Why assimilation is crushing your spirit, boo boo, and how to break free of the prison of shoulds and create the life that you want. Before we begin, hi everybody. My name is Rashni. I am a almost 50-year-old Black West Indian mom of a son with special needs. I am a content creator. I am a digital entrepreneur and I am a certified life coach. I am also a Black woman healing and I create humor filled healing spaces so that other Black and West Indian women can heal too. If that's you, boo boo, you are welcome. I am live on Facebook and YouTube today at Glamazini. If you are watching live in the chat, drop a pineapple emoji and tell me where in the world you are watching from. I am hailing from sunny but cold St. Louis, Missouri. Hi, S. Oliver, watching in NC, North Carolina, in the house. Okay, so today I'm going to get into stop shooting on yourself. Thank you for my pineapple. I appreciate it. I see you. And why shoulds are ruining your life. Okay. This is one of those messages where in my 40s, I know this to be 100% true. In my 30s, I was learning this with the help of therapy. But in my 20s and below, I was in a prison of shoulds, in a prison of shoulds. Hi, this one woman from Vegas. Okay. And so I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So let's just start from the very, very beginning. What do you mean by should? Okay. What do you mean by should, Rashni? I looked up the actual definition of the word should. The word should is used to indicate duty, obligation, typically when criticizing someone else's actions. Okay. Should is a verb that is used to indicate duty and obligation, typically judgmentally while criticizing somebody else's actions. It can also be used to denote an expectation, but we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about duty and obligation, specifically from a critical or judgmental lens, okay? And why you should stop shooting on yourself, okay? Why you could stop shooting on yourself, all right? So the title of today's video is Stop Shooting on Yourself. And it is a term or a phrase that I heard from my therapist many, many years ago for the first time. It was his way of, I believe now, helping me to understand the concept that I'm about to share with you. And so, whenever I would express to him a duty or an obligation from whatever source I had gotten it from, and I would clearly use the word should, he would calmly sit there and say, Stop shooting on yourself. And of course, it's a play on words, right? Because it sounds like stop shitting on yourself. And yes, you guys, I cuss. If you don't know that, it's gonna be all right. Okay, I'm almost 50. Um, Integration. Rashni's bringing the real her to y'all. Okay, and so it was an easy phrase for me to remember, and that's why I put it as the title of this video because it helped me over time to shift my understanding of the self-made prison. Well, the prison I was put in by the obligations and duties of others when I was growing up that I then maintained as an adult for myself. A prison I was maintaining for myself with a whole bunch of shoulds. Yeah. I'll tell you more about what he told me to do with my shoulds later than that, but that's why I called it Stop Shooting on Yourself, so that you can easily remember when you say the word should, that you can tell yourself this and it'll be something simple to go with. So, what brought up this video? Well, I'm a Black woman healing and I create humor filled healing spaces. And I put up a video recently and somebody hit me with a should. And the way that I am now, breathing on 50's neck, I just alley oop those things back to people when they say them to me. People in my real life, people on the internet, whenever they hit me with a should this, should that, I would do this. Why wouldn't you do this thing that I would do? I Uno reverse it so quickly to the point that I have like annoyed people in my real life. There's one person that got really mad at me one time when they were like, well, I would do this and I would do that. And I said, well, why don't you do it? Exactly. And then they came back later and told me that I was being disrespectful. But I mean, so now I just think it, I don't say it aloud. So I put up a video jokingly saying that I was getting used to people, young people. I think that's what I said. I was just getting used to young people saying that they're going to stop doing something that I've always done, I continue to do, and I will continue to keep doing it, something like that. And somebody in my comment section on Facebook responded back to the video saying it depends on the thing, right? Just because I'm doing it and I've been doing it doesn't mean that others should be doing it. And maybe I shouldn't be doing it too. And I was like, I'm not understanding the comment because I literally said I'm doing it. So coming in with a should on me is not a thing. So I wrote back to them and I was like, I said I was doing it. Those shoulds are yours. Cause I told you, I just alley oop them to people. I'm just like, here, take your obligation and duty back. I don't want it. Okay. You live in that world. Um, and of course the person wrote me back with something, passive aggressive and snide. But right, because that's not a person that's a person living with shoulds is not a person that's availed to what I'm about to tell you yet. Hopefully. Anyway, the point is that inspired today's video because it brought back this concept of shoulding on yourself and living in a world of duty and obligation created externally that you are breaking off pieces of yourself to fit into. And so, as I am a person who is on a healing journey, I wanted to share some of what I have learned from years of therapy with the therapist who told me to stop shitting on myself, as well as things I've learned just as I've kept living to free you from any prison that you might be experiencing, right? That is crushing you, that is removing joy from your life. Okay, so you all know I always have notes. So I'm going to go over here to my notes so that I don't forget the things I wanted to cover. So the first thing is Rachel Rogers has a book. And in the book, she asked the question, what would you do if you were not a good girl? I don't remember the full context. And it's an interesting question because it brings up this idea of what we are told is a good girl and what we are told is a bad girl and fitting into those categories. And I believe that as women, I believe that as Black women, I believe that as some of us watching might be West Indian women, there are lots of good girl shoulds that we are taught from very young ages. And I'm not going to list those things off, but I want to pose that question to you in this should conversation because we are talking about obligations and duties that are often externally placed on us. And that idea or the answer to the question of what would you do if you weren't trying to be a good girl could be a question you use to free yourself from an automatic list of rigid expectations and false safety mechanisms. And I'm going to get into that, okay? Because we are given that list of what good girls are and what not good girls are, bad girls are, as a way of trying to keep us safe. And it is a rigid kind of black and white expectation space. Okay. So I just wanted to put that out there. So the root of should, shoulds come from, let's talk about the safety and the expectations. Shoulds come from family of origin. Those shoulds in your family of origin are informed by your family of origin's trauma, how healthy that dynamic is in your family. It's all those shoulds are also heavily informed from the systems that your family of origin live in. Okay, so that means Black people, generational patterns, cultural patterns, social expectations, religious expectations, community expectations, right? And many of us know what is expected of us in different ways from being in all those categories. Yes. For example, the young lady who's like, just because you're doing it don't mean everybody else should do it, right? Or what Blackness entails, what womanness entails, what femininity entails. We get that messaging super early in life. And we are, in full or in part, often, I'm trying to pick my words, encouraged to fit into the criteria as much as possible in an effort to keep us safe. That's why I said that should is a false safety mechanism because there's almost like a promise attached to the should, that if you check the boxes on the should, you get the prizes I'm always telling you about on this imaginary conveyor belt we're all put on, right? So it's almost like the should and the duty and the obligation is part of the levers you pull or the boxes you check according to everybody else to catch the prizes of the system, to catch the prizes of the family, to catch the prizes of the culture, to catch the prizes of the religion, to catch the prizes of the community, right? And so the root of the, let me think. The root of the duty, the root of the obligation, the root of what is right and wrong, good or bad, is a very black and white, judgmental, critical way of expressing duty and obligation, comes from a desire to, one, be able to put people in categories, and two, be able to hopefully keep you safe. Although I think that there is some falseness in that rigid thinking. And hopefully I got that out. That was kind of a stumbly way to get there, but hopefully I threw it out there. If you caught it, caught it. Okay. So I believe that assimilation is a trap. I believe that black and white categorization in all the spaces is never a true representation of the authentic design of the divine. Let me get that out. A big, big God has much more power than creating this or that, good or bad. I believe that that rigid way of thinking is a limitation of man's ability to understand a big God. Therefore, I also, because I believe, I'm not saying it's true, I'm just saying I believe it. Okay, I'm just a lady, I'm a pineapple obsessed lady out here on the internet. Okay, telling her thoughts to those who want to heal alongside her while she's on a healing journey. Because men often can only put thoughts into those rigid spaces, there is a strong message of assimilating for safety, right? We are taught to shape shift for survival, which often can mean breaking off, shaving off, and or never even discovering authentic parts of ourselves in the name of fitting into the shoulds and duties and obligations of a family system or a relationship or a religion or a nation or all the things, right? In an effort to get our needs met, right? So that becomes that the myth of fitting in feels like it's going to guarantee us some kind of safety. And we all have met people who played the games, checked the boxes, did not win the prizes, and are pissed the hell off. I've met those people. They're typically older and they are typically handing you down messaging of shoulds and assimilation, hoping that you will catch the prizes, even though none of that stuff worked for them. Okay. But the cost of not being your full authentic self, not discovering your full authentic self, living in a prison of shoulds, is a disconnection from who you actually are. It's a disconnection from your authenticity. It's a disconnection from your self-expression. The hidden cost of assimilating to shoulds and coulds of all the external people and not being able to listen to the still small voice of the divine that's put inside of you by the divine who you are a part of is delayed emotional and personal development, stunted emotional growth, disconnection from wisdom, disconnection from the divine, and disconnection from self. You literally have to ignore you to fit into the greater they if you are going to check off the boxes of a should in your life and live your life based off of shoulds and what could, shoulds, and shoulds. Yeah. So, in an effort to stay safe, in an effort to follow the rules that you should be this as a woman and you should be this as a Black person, and you should be here by 40, and you should wear your hair this way, and your house should look like this, and you should have this in your kitchen, and your job should have this, and you should do this, and your kids should do that, and your clothes should do that, and your skin, all of that, right? There is a disintegration, and I mean that literally, like disintegrate. You are not integrated. You become internally fragmented, okay? You lose your intuition and self-trust, and sometimes you don't even get to listen. We are taught to smush our intuition so early that it is amazing if you become an adult and you still have some ability to check into your intuition, because there are so many things in our world and our systems that promote us not listening to it and listening to external sources. Um, it can also be a source of great anxiety and depression, because the disconnection from those things, disconnection from source, disconnection from God, disconnection from your internal voice causes you to be depressed, you guys. I know that from lived experience. Know that from lived experience. You also create a world of rule keeping where you become one of the rule keepers for other people, adding your critical and judgmental voice to the list of duties and obligations. Okay. That not only are you eagle eye looking out to make sure that they should or shouldn't do something, but now you live in the same fishbowl you've created for other people. And the reason why you're probably like that is because you think other people are eagle eyeing you to make sure you should and shouldn't. So you are participating in the prison keeping. You're in a cage and you're a guard. And I'm not saying this to be judgment. I'm saying I grew up learning to do, listen, when I tell y'all these things, I'm telling y'all these things from my lived experience. I had to break myself out of the prison that I was trained to be in from my family of origin, from cultural things, from all the things. And I'm looking at it from the outside and I'm like, to participate in that, you have to live in a fishbowl, and you have to be a prisoner and a guard in the prison. Right? You have to tell people what they should be doing. And then you have to keep up on the rules to make sure you know what you should be doing. Okay. And then on top of that, I wrote this down. I'm looking at my notes. You then live in a world of unrealistic, unauthentic clones that you helped create. Because instead of living in a world of fully realized, authentic, divinely created people, right? Who self-express in the way that they were designed. Imagine that world. I just got goosebumps. Imagine a world where we all were ourselves. I felt it. I need to hydrate on that. My body is tingling just thinking about it. Could you imagine? Oh my God. But instead, living in a prison of shoulds means you are living in a world that is an unrealistic, inauthentic world of clones, emotionally stunted, self-development stunted, spiritually stunted clones, all assimilating to rules that they have to keep and they have to maintain in others. And I don't like it. Okay. Which is why I wanted to talk to you guys about this. Let me tell you something. If you are in your 20s or early 30s and you watch my videos, good for you. This is the shortcut. All right. Everything does not have to be learned by experience. There are levels to this thing. I'm going to jump out and I'm going to jump back in. I realized this recently. Okay. Experience is putting your hand on the stove, burning your hand up and being like, ouch, the stove hurt. Definitely a teacher, but not the most efficient and not the most desirable. I don't even know what to call these things. The other way of learning is counsel, the shortcut, what I'm giving you right now, which is just listen to somebody else who put their hand on the stove. Okay, I'm trying to tell you from a person who was trained to live the black and white should, you should, to the point that a therapist had to work with me on this for years to get me out of this should prison in my mind telling other people what they should do and them telling me what I should do and me running around trying to do their shoulds, and they run around. We all run around like a chicken with our head cut off. Meanwhile, there is an entire free place that you can live without all of them shoulds. Okay, there's an entire thing that you can work to create with others that don't have all of those prisons attached to it. And that's listening to other people give you the shortcut. I assume that there's probably a third level, which is just like your brain can look at the stove and be like, that looks like it's hot. Maybe I shouldn't touch that. I don't know what you call that. But anyway, everything doesn't have to be learned the hard way. If you are a person that's shooting on yourself, this is a wonderful sign to work on what I'm going to share with you and to diminish it and eliminate it out of your life over time. Okay, let's talk about perfectionism and people pleasing and how it shows up in the land of the shoulds. Libria Jones just put up a video on YouTube that was called Perfectionism is a Form of Self-Hate. And I love that for her. I agree with her entirely. I have always said that perfectionism is fancy procrastination. I am also a recovering perfectionist. The same therapist that told me to stop shitting on myself back in my 30s basically is the one that introduced me to the fact that I was a perfectionist. How did I get there? I was raised by perfectionists, and that perfectionist gave me perfectionist concepts and ideals, and I thought that that was how I was supposed to live. However, I have learned now, like I said, breathing on 50's neck, that there is no such thing as perfect. So living a life as a perfectionist is a one, fancy form of procrastination, two, a manifestation of fear and judgment from the should people, because you are one of the should people, right? The rule keepers, right? What I talked about before. As Libria says, it may be as much as a form of self-hate because you don't believe you are worthy of being a human being and showing up trying with witnesses to you trying, because failure is not an option. Doesn't that sound like a harsh and unrealistic way to live in life? And on top of that, perfectionists and people pleasers will experience anxiety and depression because they exhaust themselves with the level of self-judgment and self-critique that it takes to maintain a full perception of perfection. Lastly, high achieving is a coping mechanism. Okay, let me just put that out there. And my last name is Copes. I should know. Okay, I am a high achiever whose name is Cope. And we all know that high achieving is one of the biggest coping mechanisms of real trauma in systems that are not set up for us to win in these Black women bodies. Right? So we go get another degree and we go do another higher level. And listen, I'm not saying we can. We are astonishing. We are astonishing. We are astonishing. But part of me realizes that the coping mechanism of perfectionism and high achieving and the messaging that if you check off these boxes, perfect. I mean, it didn't work out well for that person because they just didn't do it perfectly. So if you just figure out how to do it perfectly without knowing how, like you can't learn. You don't get to try and fail, which is how you do things. You have to know how to do it from jump. So you have to go from 0 to 100 perfectly. And then, only then will you get your prizes. Do you hear that? You should be able to go, and I said should, will, with intention. You should go from not knowing to 100% knowing with nothing in between, realistically, Black women. And then you can get the prizes. Do you hear that? Let me tell you something. When I was a kid, I remember being a kid and wondering to myself, how is it that so many people expect me to know how to do stuff, but nobody don't tell me how to do it? I thought that as a child. I remember being a child and being like, boy, these people expect me to learn all this. Where am I supposed to learn it? Aren't you guys the adults? Aren't you guys supposed to teach me how to do it? There was an expectation that I would just know how to do things. And I remember as a child being very clear on the fact that my job was to learn, try and fail. And your job was to teach me or to at least model it by living it out in front of me. And it would be like people would go from, I don't have to know a thing, I didn't even know this thing existed, to berating me for not knowing it because I should. And I remember as a child being like, that don't make no sense. That don't make no sense. And if you're listening to me right now, adult Black and West Indian woman, that's not realistic. That makes no sense. People who did that to you because it was did to them. It's a generational pattern of trauma being passed down, and it can run in your family until it runs into you. And you can choose to extinguish it right there and change the trajectory. I had a former coaching client inbox me recently, work I did with her years ago, and told me flat out, I have changed the trajectory of her generations after her. And you can too, okay? So people pleasing is a survival mechanism. All these shoulds. Are you putting other people's needs in front of your own or trying to soothe your nervous system by following the rules that were given to you by well-meaning or maybe not even well-meaning people telling you what you should and shouldn't be doing so that you are safe, right? And you may be trying to maintain those rules because you have a real fear of disappointing others, disappointing family, disappointing community, disappointing church, and ultimately disappointing self. And the disappointment of self is really rooted in help. And you don't trust that you think you might be extricated from the group if you don't check these should boxes. So even if the should boxes don't feel authentic, you're not willing to challenge the should because you don't know internally that you feel strong enough and trust yourself to be able to stand up to the feeling of being abandoned by the group. And I just want to say that's a valid thing. I'm not going to drag you for that. That's a valid thing. If you are steeped, if your nervous system developed foundationally, especially if it's family of origin and stuff that you learned as a kid, but even if it isn't family of origin, if you are steeped in messaging that if you don't do this, you don't fulfill these duties and obligations, you should this, you shouldn't this, good girls this, bad girls that, there's going to be a legitimate response to even thinking the thought of should I not. There's going to be a physical response, okay? We are spirits. We have a soul. We live in a body. Our bodies are real, okay? Our bodies have nervous systems, right? There's a limitation in the flesh because the flesh has to be controlled by something, and the flesh is being controlled by the beliefs that turn into the thoughts and the feelings that turn into the choices, actions, and behaviors. There is a nervous system attached to this whole thing. And when you have a valid response where you're like, I can't do that, that's valid. That doesn't mean that you can't move forward. It means that you have to acknowledge that you are a person living in a meat suit that has a nervous system that needs to learn new skills and tools about how to be soothed when you step outside of duties and obligations. It's not necessarily a stop sign, okay? It's a yield sign. Yield to the necessity of understanding somatics, your body, and how it is playing into you assimilating and you crushing yourself and not exploring and expressing yourself in its fullness. I don't know if I got that out too, but I remember when I learned about this kind of stuff specifically, I had the feeling that my body kept betraying me, especially for my anxiety response. But I remember when I realized that it wasn't a stop sign, because for years it was a stop sign. I felt like I was dying, literally. And I didn't have the vocabulary or the education to understand. And that's why I keep saying sometimes I'm trying to give y'all a shortcut. I'm not saying that you can implement everything I'm saying right now. I'm saying you can research it and you could cut 5 years off your healing. All right. I'm giving you the shortcut. Anyway, so let me see if I make this. Oh, I also put this down. Patterns specifically impacting Black and West Indian women include not just assimilating and code switching and perfectionism and people pleasing and all of that. But we are often told we got to be twice as good to get half as much. Imagine how many shoulds come out of that. You can't even get to the playful expression of self, the joyous, um, you know, art, singing, dancing, playing in grass, standing in the sunshine, swimming at the beach, writing just because you want to express yourself, sharing your divine design with the world. You can't even get to that, okay? Because you out here trying to be twice as good. Erica De Niro TV says that black women are trained to be the maid, the mule, or the mattress. You got to be twice the mule in a system. Imagine the level of shoulds. And if you have never imagined them, just think about it for a second. So let's talk about reclaiming our authentic selves. The first thing you have to do to stop shoulding on yourself is realize that when the word should flies out your mouth, you are obligating yourself to a duty that may be from a critical lens. Ain't no should. Now you're gonna be like, Reshni, what you trying to say? People should wear clothes when they walk out the house. Yes, I'm not saying that they're I'm not saying to really go for it and be like, I'm a nudist, and then just be a nudist in the Whole Foods. Because clearly, if you're going to live in a system, okay, let's rein it back in. Let's rein it back in from theory to like real life. If you're going to live in a system, you have to consider some of the ramifications of the system. Now, if you want to be a nudist for real and not wear any clothes, I'm sure that there is some place out in this world you could go out in the bushes and be walking around buck booty naked. You just have to extricate yourself from the system because there are parameters of the system, right? However, I am quite aware of plenty of people who even push parameters of shoulds in the example of clothing and dress however the heck they want to. So I'm not telling you to fully buck the parameters of a system. I'm telling you to heavily question and consider whether you have more free will to make a different choice than you are told you should. One of the more powerful and easy to remember tools that my therapist taught me over a decade ago, I should say former therapist because he's former therapist, long story, but former therapist, very integral in shifting me to who I am right now. However, also former therapist, is whenever the word should comes up in my mind or in my words, switch it to could and see how that feels. Because should designates obligation and duty, could designates possibility and free will. And that was super helpful as a quick skill and tool for me to help me stop shooting on myself because I was a perfectionist who grew up being told that there are black and white shoulds and should nots. And so to break out of it, I had to be like, could? And then whenever I said could, it was almost like somebody cracked the door open a little bit to wait a minute. If it could, that means it could not. So what would be the option if it could not? And that's when I started to be able to perceive options, right? Because when you start asking yourself the question of, but what happens if it could not? Then what would that look like? And that means that you are for the first time, at least I was for the first time, contemplating options and possibilities that I never ever thought about, never saw modeled to think about, never felt comfortable enough to think about, never even conceptualized that there were options. And I have told you guys a million times, and I'm going to say it until God takes me home. Okay. There is nothing like a Black or West Indian woman who realizes that she has agency and options. My definition of joy is when somebody realizes that they have agency and options to create something different. That's when the light comes on. Okay. And that was part of me understanding that there were options. I switched my shoulding to coulding. I should do this. Well, maybe I could do that. And then I'd be like, what would happen if I didn't do it? And it helps you think further than where you are. Because I wrote this down. Let me see. I don't want to miss my spot. Part of reclaiming your authentic self and breaking out of a prison of should is understanding that you are actually stunted and your authentic you is hidden. Somebody telling me I should or shouldn't do something, when they say that to me, my first thought is, I'm not my first thought is this person is probably young. They probably believe what they're saying, which is their journey to be on. And they're probably stunted. That's what I think. I'm not saying that's true. I am not the divine. I am not the governor of all things. I'm just saying I give people grace because I was on that journey and they are on that journey, right? Stunted meaning not given the ability to grow, to mature. Not growing and not maturing in that space. Stuck at a spot. Also, I think that authenticity is hidden when you continually shoulding on yourself, right? You're telling yourself, I should this, I should that, I should do this, I should, it should, right? People who should on themselves and should on others abandon natural talents and their actual interests for more practical ones that they should do underneath whatever category somebody has programmed them to should. And listen, once again, I want to stop and say, I'm not saying this from a place of judgment. I'm saying this from a place of observation, and my own lived experience. You have to abandon yourself in full or in part to check off a list of shoulds. To answer the call of a should, you have to give up the coulds. And in the coulds is exploration of self, and exploration of free will, and exploration of possibilities beyond what you were told by whoever told you you should do the thing. No child comes out of their mother's hoo-ha thinking, I should this, I should that. We are all programmed. This is all made up, you guys. It's all made up. Okay. We're all programmed based off of so many different categories that we are all in. We are all intersectionally living within this human experience amongst other humans with different things that come at us. All of us have a unique combination of it. You have to give up yourself. There's a discovery of self that you freely can do, right? When you put down the shoulds and you explore the coulds, you have to give that up for more practical choices that other people tell you. And when I tell you that was my whole upbringing, oh my God, I don't know what that meant. I'm sitting here right now thinking about well-meaning adults who all they did was model that for me. All they did was model taking their real authentic self and putting it on shelves for more practical choices. Also, to should on yourself or to stop, let me go to stop shoulding on yourself, you have to realize that not only are you enough, you are not too much of anything. One of the biggest tools of those who keep rules and obligations in the land of should is to make you shrink yourself when you express a full, authentic desire. Speaking about that, my coaching membership, I'm gonna tell you what we're doing right now. But next month, I'm gonna do a ask for what you want challenge because I'm interested in the concept of once you know who you are, how do you establish what you want, which is your desires, right? I'm not gonna go super deep, but just high level. So if you're interested, thepineapplecrown.com. But anyway, I just want to say that because telling somebody that they're too much, telling somebody that they want too much, telling somebody that they are too much, that they're too loud, they're too big, they're too tall, their hair's too this, your thoughts are to this, your desires are to this, your expression is to this, your ideas and imaginations are to this, listen, it is the number one tool of the should crowd. It's the number one tool. So for example, in the video that I told you guys about, the should rule that was put on me had to do with age. That is a huge one. That is a huge one. And the wild part about that is people who say that, all you got to do is keep living. So it's a silly thing to say because all of us, unless you leave us, here in this earth plane. Okay. All you gotta do is keep living, and all them shoulds gonna come pile up on you. So you see it all the time online of like younger people saying older people should do this, should do that, and the other, and then they age a bit, and they're just like, "Wait a minute, I am the older people. I didn't know." And we're like, "Yeah, you didn't know, right?" So you have part of conversely. Let me go. Conversely, to reclaim your authentic self and not live in a prison of shoulds. Yeah, you have to realize that you are not to anything. Matter of fact, be more of it. Okay. Say more of it before you take it back. Okay. I like pineapples. They bring me joy. I like Ursula from The Little Mermaid. She's right there. Okay. I like art. There's a giant 6 foot paintbrush. There's a paint easel. Right. I kind of have a very childlike, happy go lucky vibe. And I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm not listen, it's getting worse. I don't it's getting worse. Too much. When somebody says I am too much of this, too much of that, to this, to that, and to the other, if I'm too much, like the lady on TikTok says, then I release you to go find less. Because clearly less is all you wanted. So go find that because that's not me. I'm not gonna change myself because you can't handle all of the scandal. Okay. If it's too much for you, that's fine. I mean, I'm fine with that. Just go find less, boo boo. Just go find less. It's okay. If all you could do is less, that's fine. Right. The other thing is you have to obligate yourself in a world of shoulds and to follow all the rules of shoulds. You have to also accept that certain things are inappropriate. Okay, this is very nuanced. So if you are a person that does not do nuance, listen, just relax, relax. Okay, we going to talk about nuance right now. I'm not saying that there aren't things that aren't necessarily inappropriate in a social structure. I'm also not, I'm not sitting here on the internet trying to do deep intellectual and academic reviews of concepts. Okay. So, like I said, this is a very nuanced thing. But what I'm saying is, you may be putting more things in the category of what is and isn't inappropriate and what isn't appropriate. What's a good girl and what's a bad girl, what you're supposed to do and what you don't, what you're supposed to do. And a lot of those things may be coming from external sources of people giving you false senses of safety, but you breaking off pieces of yourself. Okay. Take some of that stuff out of, yes, it's inappropriate to just walk out into the middle of the street, pull down your clothing and use the bathroom. Not the most appropriate thing in a social structure. Okay. But is it inappropriate to save your money, quit your job, and go back to art school? No. Right? Like those two things are not, right. So you have to be a very rigid, very black and white thinker to live in a world of shoulds. And the older you get, the more you realize that youthfulness does not have the full perspective of what aging actually is like, the lived experience of aging. It's almost like we're given this messaging that like the whole life is supposed to be lived before 30. And when you hit 30, you're just like, what kind of okey doke? Because you ain't even really like you. It's such a ridiculous expectation. You ain't really even got good started yet. And so the liberation and the freedom is, and the self love, right? And the self love and the actual safety is learning how to intentionally choose and discover who you actually are, your real self, you specifically, and the courage to show up in the world as her a little bit more every single day. And should can't live alongside that decision. Yeah. So, how do you break down the walls of the prison of should? Well, you show up as your authentic self, like I just said. You realize that you have free will. You stop shoulding on yourself and you change the word should in your thoughts and in your words, your spoken words, to self and to others as could. Matter of fact, stop telling other people they should or shouldn't do anything. You are not your brother's keeper in that way. That's not what God meant. Okay. You're not log in the eye, log in your eye, speck in their eye. Relax. If you notice that your nervous system gets deregulated because you think somebody else should be doing something, I offer to you that that might be an opportunity for you to not say that and to look at yourself, because it's probably an indication that you are feeling some kind of way about how you are showing up in that space. And you might want to just sit with that and figure out how you want to show up instead of telling the other person something. Um, that specific thing is a huge indication of minding other people's business so you don't have to mind your own. Yeah. Um, you stop shooting on yourself by realizing that shoulds are actually coulds. And those coulds include possibilities and choice. Shoulds are actually coulds. And those coulds include possibilities and choice. Stop listening to other people and start listening to yourself and God. Okay. Start. And if you don't have a good line of a conversation with God in your head, get one. Get a practice of a stronger internal self concept and a stronger link to the divine, so that you are not piecing yourself together like a Frankenstein from external messaging of others. Because when you get to the end of the thing, you are going to be really, really sad about the life that you created. And I say that as a person who was Frankenstein in herself up until her 30s. I'm not telling you this to judge. I'm telling you, when you Frankenstein yourself, you got to start pulling off pieces and find you underneath there. And that's what I've been doing for the past decade plus. And the shortcut is slow it down. Okay. Don't do that. And if you have been doing it, start discovering yourself. Identify whose voice is really speaking to you when you hear the word should. When you hear the word should again in your mind, I want you to stop and say, who said that? Okay. Metacognition. Y'all must be so sick of me. I be saying, I be coming out here talking great. Listen. If this is not for you, this is not for you. Okay. But those who can hear, hear. Hello, Sila. I'm throwing it. Catch it. Catch it. Okay. Metacognition is one of the most freeing things, in that metacognition is learning that you can think about your thoughts. Lots of different things have different words for it. Religions and psychology and all, they have, listen, when you learn you can think about your thoughts and that your thoughts are not you, and you separate the two things, boo boo, boo boo, the healing journey has begun. Okay. Hold on to your horses. You are for a wild ride. When you hear the word should in your mind, or you hear the word should fly out your mouth, I want you to ask you, who said that? And I promise you, if you dig back deep enough, you're going to realize you didn't say it. Rushni, who is it? It's your mama. It's your auntie. It's the collective expectation of Blackness. It's the Black card people. It's the social experience. It's academia. It's the good girl voice. It's the women don't do this, women don't do that voice. It's America. It's church. It's your pastor. It's all kind of voices in there telling you stuff. You said, listen, I'm trying to help people, okay? I know it. Listen, I know it be meaty sometimes, but I think it's because in my mind when I'm doing these videos, I'm talking to a past version of myself. And I'm trying to give myself the cheat code. Okay. So the next time you hear should in your mind, I want you to not just say, stop shooting on yourself, but I also want you to ask who said that to you, and identify whose voice it is. And then ask yourself, is there fruit off of that tree that I want to pick? Meaning fruit as in results and outcomes that you want to emulate. Has that person, that place, that social construct, that pastor, that have they produced fruit that I would like to emulate the results of in my life? And if they have, then possibly go in that direction, but still tweak it with a could, because you are a unique individual. But if they haven't, and you don't want it, you don't have to tell them you don't want it, boo-boo. You have to do what my pastor used to say. You wink at the wall and then you go about your business. You listen, that's between you and the divine, not you and them. Let them have the life that they are creating. Okay? Let them do it and let you do it. That's why when people should me, I'd just alley-oop it back to them. You can have that back. That's for you. Live in that prison. Good luck. Okay? Good look. The next thing you should do, the next thing you should do, the next thing you could do, look at me. The next thing you could do is allow for freedom of your conscious choice and authentic expression, which has to be extremely hard to do if you are a person that has shoulded yourself into an abyss, that has shoulded yourself, that has listened to the shoulds in your head and the shoulds coming from external sources for so long that you look like one of those little shrivel up things on the Little Mermaid that Ursula had, the little shrivel up thing. You don't even know who you are. You don't know who authentic expression, Rushni. Expression of what? Who am I? What do you mean express? I'm supposed to know who I am beyond a role that I play in other people's lives. And I already told you guys, if you ask you who you are and all you could tell me is roles that you play in other people's lives, you are a tool like a fork or a spoon. I'm not saying that playing roles in other people's lives is a bad thing. Matter of fact, I think that it's a noble and beautiful thing from a full cup. This life that you are living is not a life that you were put here to be a fork or a bowl or a spoon to somebody else. You should be a full cup. And from the cup and from the overflow, you show up full, abundant, juicy, pouring out from all that rested abundance and self-love and joy and agency and options and authentic expression and conscious choice. Okay? Yes, I'm going to hold this cup for the example. Pouring it out on everyone with wild abandon. I already told you, you can't give me what you don't have. If your cup is empty and you ain't taking care of yourself, how you taking care of me? How? I'm not saying God can't use you. He can use anything. That's not the point I'm saying. I'm saying my job here is I have a heart toward Black and West Indian women, transforming their lives and creating the lives that they want. And often that has a very not hard work. There is a foundational effort that I have to bring to our specific groups. Okay? Which is to pour into ourselves, because there's so much messaging of showing up on vapors, empty and burned out. I think I told you guys last week or the week before that burnout happens when there isn't enough fuel for the fire. And oftentimes the lack of fuel for the fire is because we haven't poured anything in. So we are put in exorbitantly stressful situations because of our womanness, because of our Blackness, because of all of it, but we ain't given no fuel. We need to take this down. The stressors need to come down. The fire needs to come down. And the fullness, the fuel needs to go up. The fuel. Okay. And so part of how you reclaim your authentic self and you stop shooting on yourself is you make intentional and conscious big room for your conscious choice and your authentic expression. And if you don't have feelings of agency and conscious choice, then you need to learn how to do that. And it is a skill that you can learn. Ask me how I know. I have learned it. Okay. And I'm not even telling you to come work with me to learn it. You could come work with me, boo boo. I got you. I told you. I got you. I'm saying find somebody to work with, whether it's me or not, that lets you know that you have agency and options, that you get to show up as yourself. Ain't no shoulds. Who did God create? Imagine a world where we actually got to experience all of us the way God wanted us to show up here. I know we can't because humans suck. And especially in this regret, I'm about to, okay, we off, but I'm coming back. I promise I'm coming back. In this regressive environment that we are living in the year of our good Lord 2025, with all these people trying to go back to make something great that was never great for us. You see how operating in black and white thinking manifests itself. That is a very black and white, this is right, that is wrong way of thinking, and trying to ignore the authentic grays, the gradient of expression of a divine creator who cannot be confined by rigid black and white. And I mean that in all of the different spectrums of ways that humans experience. Part of my frustration, and you probably hear it coming out in my. Let me hydrate. I think I'm getting elevated. Let me come down. I should have put something else in here. Okay, it's just water and electrolytes. Part of the heartbreak, because it's actually grief and heartbreak covered up by the emotion of anger and disgust. Okay, is that if we could just get past this low hanging stuff, could you imagine a world where we all got to figure out who we were and then expressed her fully, showing up with all of the beautiful ways that we were designed to show up, and getting to pick fruit from everyone else's trees while we had a full tree abundant with fruit of our own to offer to others. Could you imagine? Oh, and I don't know if that's possible, but I know that world does not involve a bunch of shooting on each other. Okay, let's get back to the video. Whew. So, practical step, practical, practical steps to freeing yourself from the prison of shoulds. And I want to say this too. This goes without saying. A lot of this is aimed at yourself. If you are a person telling other people should, stop. If you are a person telling other people should, stop. I already addressed that deeply earlier in the video, but I just want to say stop. That you are busy aiming that messaging of obligation and duty at other people because you feel the pull so strongly in yourself. Shh. Go in the mirror and figure out why you feel the need to create prisons for other people. And are you in a prison in yourself that you are trying to externalize so that you don't have to do the internal work? Practical steps. I keep messing that up. Practical steps for freeing yourself. Okay. Reframe the word should to could. So instead of, I should tone myself down, I could tone myself down. But what would happen if I didn't want to tone myself down? Well, they would probably be upset. Well, do I want to be around people that don't want me to freely express myself? Maybe I don't want to be around these people. Maybe these people are stunting me. Maybe I'm stunted. Am I stunted? And then eventually you might end up all the way to a person who freely expresses themselves because they've shifted themselves out of, I should tone myself down because I'm around a bunch of stunted people telling me I should, and vice versa. The next thing is become more flexible and compassionate to yourself so that you can be more flexible and compassionate to others. Things are not so rigid. This is a personal thing of my own. I'm not saying that it's true. Once again, I keep giving disclaimers in this video because people always take things as prescriptive and not descriptive. This is descriptive. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm saying I do it. Me, myself, personally, when I meet somebody who tells me black and white rigid things, I don't care what space is it, I feel that they are unsafe and I distance myself from them. Whether in actual physicality, I distance myself, or I psychologically distance myself. I have experienced so much harm from people holding rigid black and white thoughts without the complexity of the gray, gradient, and nuance. At this point in my life, I have made a personal decision that those people are unsafe. Okay. So create a more flexible and compassionate standard for yourself so that you can pour from that cup onto other people and offer a more flexible and compassionate standard for others. Because don't you want to live in a world that's flexible, fluid, and compassionate that allows authentic expressions and people to show up as themselves and not fit into cookie cutter should boxes? I want to live in that world. I want to live in that world. Can we create that world? I don't know. I don't think that the human life is long enough for all of us to have the full experience of the thing. I think we all just put one little stone in the mosaic, and that might be as far as we get to see. I don't know. I don't know. Okay. Also, another practical step is, let's see. I'm trying to get my notes here. Reconnecting with the stunted parts of yourself. And like I said, you might one remember a version of you that was more authentic that you gave up so that you could fit into social constructs and or family dynamics and or whatever women do, whatever you gave up. Go back and get her. Go get her. Go back and get her. I had a coaching client recently on one of our group calls share that she's going to go back and start playing an instrument that she stopped playing years ago. But dag nabbit, she want to play the instrument. Okay, I have gone back. I'm going back this year. This year, as I talk to you guys, I'm not telling you guys things I'm not doing. You see this big paintbrush? This big paintbrush was procured because I was a freelance artist as a teenager in an ad agency. And when they were remodeling the ad agency, I got this paintbrush. I am almost 50, and this is one of my prized possessions. When my therapist asked me if I paint or if I do art, because she saw my new therapist, she saw this easel and she saw this paintbrush and she didn't know anything about it. When that woman said, "Do you do art? Do you paint?" Y'all, I busted out crying. Come on now. So we had to go down the rabbit hole. Rushni had left the artistic version of her in the past. You guys, I used to paint. I used to sell paintings. Go back and get her. And if you don't know who she is, I don't care how old you are, play. Allow yourself to try things like a charcuterie board of expression and find out who the stunted version of you actually is right now, and then give her space. That's part of how you free yourself from the shoulds. Also, exposure therapy to try to be seen trying is good for people who live underneath the prison of a should. This idea that you need to be perfect and you can't try anything new. How do you expect anybody to learn anything if you don't try? That's the part that never made sense to me as a kid. How are you expect me to learn this if nobody don't want? I can't even fail in front of you without getting chomped down on. Relax, relax. Go play, Black woman. Go play, West Indian women. Go play and figure out who you are if you're stunted, because you may not have left her back there. You may have never had an opportunity to figure out what your authentic self even looks like. Go get her. Figure her out. And then identify ways, small ways that can turn into big ways that you can express who you are authentically every single day. Every single day. You are enough. You are allowed if you are permission based. Although I'm a stranger on the internet, you don't need permission from me, boo boo. But maybe, listen, some people who are living should, they are rule people. So I'll give you permission right now, boo. But eventually, unfurl them wings and fly without me, okay? But right now, training wheels. I give you permission to figure out who you are. I give you permission to decipher what you want from that fount of who you are. And then I give you permission to be her. And if you never were her, to create her. And that, my friends, is how you stop shooting on yourself. Okay. This video is sponsored by thepineapplecrowns.com, a beautiful space for Black and West Indian women on a healing journey, curated by moi. Okay. We have monthly coaching calls. We have challenges right now. The 14 days to friendship challenge is happening, and it is a permanent offering well, I don't want to say permanent. It is going to be an offering for now in the coaching membership. If you are interested in participating in the 14 days to friendship challenge, go to thepineapplecrowns.com and click on I think it's still at the top of the page, but if you're watching this in the future, click on the group coaching membership. I'll put it I just dropped it in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube. And it is part of the membership. Become a member. There is a community function. It is, let's see, I have a course on boundaries, holistic productivity. Listen, if you want to work with me as your coach, if you like what I'm putting down, just come through thepineapplecrowns.com. The other thing is, if you want to download, that's what I was going to say, the Who Am I workbook. You're like, Rushni, I don't even know who you are. You appear in the sky, and I need you to start down here. There is a free download on thepineapplecrowns.com. You can download the Who Am I identity workbook. It helps you with the very, very basic beginnings of answering the question, who am I? So that you can figure out who you are, so that you can figure out if any of these shoulds are even things that align with who you are, boo-boo, because they might not. And you might be falling for the okie doke. And I don't want you to. I want you to create the life that God intends for you to create. Okay. That's all I got. I love you guys. Create the most amazing weekend and week. I'm trying to find this. Listen, this one that my son gave me is the best one. It's just right there. Be well, you guys. Be encouraged. Create the life you want. Stop shitting on yourself. Here's a pineapple. Bye.